When life begins to overwhelm or your routine gets off track, it can be easy for that to spill over in the way that we care for ourselves. I recently came down with the 21st century plague, which left me lying on my couch for over 2 weeks straight. Being physically unable to keep up my routine and unable to participate in the world at large, I started to feel like I wasn't progressing, wasn't working on my goals, and in general, negative self-talk started to make its way into my headspace. So now that I'm allowed outside again and I'm slowly healing, I thought I would work to counteract those negative thoughts and show the ways that I practice self-love and self-care. When I look at the ways that I practice self-love and self-care, I view them in 3 categories. And we'll start with the first category, which is mind. When I'm looking for self-care of my mind, I'm looking at ways that I can either let my mind rest or challenge my mind. Think of new ideas and bring in different trains of thought. The first in this category that I've been leaning on heavily the last year has been reading. In the previous years, I was lucky if I read a couple books every year, but in the last 6 months, I've read 20 books and counting. And I must say that I've been leaning on the letting my mind rest side. I've been delving into the world of fiction and falling in love with being drawn into a different world again. When I'm reading fiction, my mind is nowhere but the place at hand. It's disconnected from any of my devices or the internet, so I'm not tempted to check in on my notifications, how well certain videos are doing. Next up are ways for my mind to wander, to allow myself stream of consciousness thought to dip in and out while I have another task at hand. Just like reading, this can be as relaxing or challenging with my mind as I desire that day. When I'm coloring, I can let the colors flow freely, just going with the flow, letting my heart's desire pick the next color. Or I can go in with a plan, determined to make an aesthetic piece and challenge my sense of color theory and push my creativity. For crocheting, it's the same. I can do a simple repetitive pattern like I'm doing here, making my friend a baby blanket for the new pal who's about to come into the world. Or I can really challenge myself and do a complicated pattern that pushes my mind to develop new skills and improve my crochet technique. Though I must admit, when I'm doing a collage, it mostly is go with the flow. And it's something I've really been loving this past year. It's sort of the basis of my journal this year. And I've had a really fun time decorating and imagining my year through this lens so far. Last step for my self-care of the mind is listening to a podcast or watching a film. It's pretty easy to do this concurrently with any of the previous coloring, crocheting, puzzling, collaging. I'm sure each one of us has a comfort film or two that we are drawn to when we just need to give that little bit of self-care. For me, it is the animated Disney Alice in Wonderland or The Labyrinth, or on the podcast side, it is the many horror anthology podcasts that I listen to. I know that's not a comfort thing for everybody, but for me, I just love being wrapped up in those stories and being spooked in a safe environment. Of course, when I want to challenge my mind, I can go to the many science podcasts I listen to or watch the latest release from A24 Films. Just something to change my perspective, bring new ideas in, and push my mind and my thoughts in a stress-free way. Next up is the body. The way I practice self-care in the physical realm. Now, you won't find me counting calories or pushing myself to do exercise that I don't enjoy. For me, caring about the body is all about bringing fun and play back into the way we move our body. If I'm not enjoying it, I'm not doing it. The easiest way to care for my body is going on a walk. I know there are some jokes about going on a stupid little walk for my stupid mental health, but it is true. Anytime I'm feeling discombobulated or stuck or just like I'm itching at my sense of self, going on a walk really helps. And it doesn't have to be this great massive thing. As I'm still healing, I've been just going on a small walk to the park and sitting and reading. Of course, I do love pushing my body and going on much longer walks, as you might have seen in my Romanticize Your Life video or in my summer solstice video. But just getting out there, even for 15 minutes, really does a lot for self-care. As far as more active, fun activities to bring in that self-love, my main practice for many years has been doing dance improv. It can be as big as renting out a studio space so you can really go at it, or like me today, just sort of jamming in my living room. It's a bit of a cliche to say dance like nobody's watching, but it really does do wonders for my self-love and makes me just enjoy moving and being in my body. It's all about bringing fun and appreciation into that physical sense. This past summer, I really dove into roller skating for just this reason. Now, please imagine that I'm one of those really cool TikTok girls who can do the dancing and the tricks, and I'm doing flips in skate parks. And not that I'm still just trying to skate backwards, but really, it's all about just picking something and seeing how you improve. Finally, for my self-care of the body, it's ways that I de-stress and finding ways to relax in my body. For me, that is stretching or lying in constructive rest. As a dancer, stretching just makes me feel so good. It's something I think that is so important for everybody's body, but gets played down in just how important it is. You know, people always say, oh, make sure you stretch like 5 minutes before exercising or, 10 minutes afterwards, but having a good long stretch is so key to me feeling close to my body and like I'm really inside of it. And lying in constructive rest, which is a method in Alexander technique of how to realign your spine and neck, gives me time to think, maybe throw on a podcast, you never know, and just de-stress and let my body heal in a very relaxing way. And lastly, we have the category of self. For me, this means things I can do when I want to feel more like myself, for when I really need to get back into myself and feel connected to who I am, or conversely, to challenge and push my sense of self. For me, self-care is not just being gentle 100% of the time, though that version of self-care is a big part of it, but it's also loving myself, and part of loving myself sometimes is knowing that I need to be uncomfortable or push myself and my thoughts. If you've been here before, you know that putting an outfit together and doing myself up makes me feel more like myself. It's a simple thing, but personal style can be transformational, and putting on the right outfit can really empower you and make me feel like the best version of myself. Of course, I'll then take myself out to eat or take myself out on a little date. Just spend that time reconnecting with myself and taking myself out on a little adventure. Another thing that I do to show myself self-love is writing myself a letter. Because Valentine's Day just passed, I wrote a love letter to myself. I wrote it in second person, like, I really appreciate how you do XYZ. Even though it sounds kind of cheesy and maybe kind of cliche, it was actually so powerful. After finishing just writing a one-page love letter to myself, I really became emotional, and it was quite powerful. It doesn't have to be a love letter, but just talking to yourself from this different perspective can really be helpful. Anytime negative thoughts enter my mind and I find myself being not the kindest to myself, I always think about, would you say this to your best friend? Would you say this to your sister, your mom, your partner? And if you wouldn't say it to them, then why are you saying it to yourself? And so writing myself a letter from this outside perspective just really emphasized that thought. Another way I feel connected to myself is journaling or doing tarot. So recently in my tarot practice, I did a spread for self-care, which involves 7 cards. And this reading was just what I needed to do. I'm very on the nose with what I've been feeling, what's sort of been blocking my mind. I'm not the most intense person about tarot, but I think it is just a really great way to change your perspective of yourself. Now this next one is definitely more in the challenging myself category, and that is allowing space for impulsiveness. I am somebody who is a planner. I like to know exactly when things are happening. I plan how I get there. I'm never late. And so finding and taking up those impulsive moments in my life is very important to me, so I don't get too stuck in my ways. Now yesterday I had a chance to act on this impulsiveness and I took it. One of my tattoo artists, Amy Orchard at Divine Ink Devon, put up on her Instagram that she had a small space to fill at the end of the day if anybody wanted to take it. So I decided to take it. Luckily she was game, and now I have this cute little snail tattoo on my ankle. And if you're wondering what the chum is, basically when I was little I was obsessed with snails, and every snail I called chum. Every snail I saw I'd be like, oh, here's chum, here's my chums. Because all the snails are my friends, they're my chums. So I got a snail on my ankle with the word chum, and I love my little snail and love how it has that connection to my younger self as well. Now I will always have a chum with me. And getting tattoos really feeds into my self-love. I've spent so many years of my life being at odds with my body and not being comfortable in my own skin, and getting tattoos finally feels like a celebration of my body. I hope you found the ways that I practice self-love helpful. I would love to know how you practice this self-love, and I would love to know some things that you love about yourself. And in case you need to hear it, I love you and I support your journey. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.